everybody, what's up and welcome back to my channel. Today we're gonna do something a little bit different. It's still sort of spring related, but kind of sort of not really, maybe. Today I am taking you guys through planning a Disney trip with me. All the things that I consider, all the things that I look for, and everything, all my travel hacks, tips that I do to make a trip doable so that we can go every single year and thoroughly enjoy ourselves. So if you guys want to plan a trip with me, then just keep watching. All right, so first off, I've got some Funko Pops with me. I just got them and I thought they were amazing. So I just got the 50th Disney Castle and then I got the Queen of Hearts in her teacups. I thought they were amazing. Had to have them in here with me. So they're joining me for the video basically. All right, so first tip that I always think whenever I'm planning a trip, and this is something that we considered because we're going in May for 6 days, 5 days, 5 days, that I always consider when do we want to go and when don't we want to go. So first off, when you're considering when to go, one of the biggest considerations you have to think of is if you have kids, can you take them out of school or do you have to wait till a break? Or if you, depending on your job, are there times where you just can't get off of work or times that you would not be able to take vacation? So for Greg and I, neither of those are a factor. We don't have kids and both of our jobs basically let us go whenever we want. So we like to go in off-season times. Now, one of the things that we also consider is when we don't want to go. So we don't like going during spring break, during major holidays. We don't like going like June, July in peak vacation season. So, you know, when we go in May, we're going before all of the kids get out of school and we're going after spring break. A lot of times we have found that both his and my birthdays, so his birthday's in April, my birthday's in August, actually tend to be fairly good weeks for us to go. So my birthday is always the week before school comes back in. And for whatever reason, that always tends to be a slower season. His birthday tends to fall right after spring break season. So again, like the weekend we get there tends to be busier, but then it really calms down that week and is pretty dead. So next thing that we factor whenever we're planning a trip is how long do we want to go for? Because we're much closer in Texas than we were in Pennsylvania, we do try to go more often now. In 2021, we actually went twice. This year we're going at least once, but we are going to Orlando for a cruise later on this year. So bouncing back and forth between Houston and Orlando tends to be pretty quick and easy. So when we go, we like to plan 5-6 day trips. When we lived in Pennsylvania, we liked to plan like a 9 or 10 day trip just because we couldn't get there every single year. Now, you've got to figure out what works best for you. How long do you want to go? Do you want to hit every single park? Do you want to have downtime? What do you want to do? This fall, my 2 closest friends and I are actually planning a girls' weekend in Disney, and we're planning maybe like a 4-day trip. But again, we go so frequently that we can hit the highlights and hit our favorite parts. We don't feel like we have to do everything. So that's something to consider. How often do you go and how long do you want to go for if you want to try to do everything? Or is it a trip where you can maybe skip some stuff because you want to hit your favorite things? The next thing that we always consider whenever we're planning our Disney trip is where do we want to stay? So Greg and I like just being really close to the parks. We like having a lot of the comfort because we spend time at the pools, we spend times at the resorts, and it's so easy to just pick a resort and always stay there. But check and see, like if there's a sale going on, is a different resort doable? One thing that we found is we started running DVC points. And so when we go in May, we're actually we're doing a split stay at Contemporary and Riviera. And it factored out to be about the same cost as it would have been for us to stay at Pop Century. So look into that. Sometimes it's cost efficient, sometimes it's not. You know, when we went last August, I think it cost us like $800 to stay at Pop, but it would have cost us $1,700 to stay with a DVC resort. it doesn't always work out, but there's times like for us this May, it worked out perfectly. So check and see if you want to stay at a deluxe resort, check and see if renting DVC points works for you. We've done it before. I'm pretty sure that we will keep doing it. We love it. But it's a way for us to stay. We've stayed at Poly with it. We are staying at Contemporary. We're staying at Riviera. Just, it's a way to do those deluxe resorts without paying the deluxe price. Next thing is, once you get to the airport or however, once you get to Orlando, basically, how are you going to get to the parks? Disney did away with their free bus and free express services, and now it's a paid service. And one thing that we found was we actually hire Orlando Limo tours, and it's a private car service that picks us up at the airport, takes us to the resort, picks us up at the resort, and brings us back to the airport. It's about $150 round trip for us. They take up to 4 people. We have found that we really like that. We factor that into our budget because we like being able to just get straight to our resort. We don't really like having to sit on the bus. Now, the bus is more of a cost-effective method. I think it's run by Mears at this point. It's probably about $30 per person round trip. So if you have a large family or if you're not in a huge hurry, it is much more cost effective. But like I said, we like to just get to the resort. We don't like to wait around. We don't like to sit on a bus. We just want to get up and go. With that being said, sometimes we're at our resort before our room is ready. One trick that we have found and we absolutely love is we will drop our bags off at Bell Services and let them know our name, let them know our reservation numbers. And a lot of times, now this hasn't happened every time, but this has happened most times that we've been there. We go to the parks, we go to Disney Springs, we do whatever. And when our room is ready, Bell Services will take our luggage to our room for us. Or when we get back, we just call them and they'll bring our luggage up for us. So that's an option too. If you get to your resort before your room is ready, you can always drop your bag and go. You don't have to sit around and wait for your room to get ready. So getting to your resort and getting to Disney parks, that's 2 tricks that I use. We always take the private car because, again, we just like the luxury of not having to wait, not having to be on the bus with everybody else. We can just get and go, and then we drop our bags off and head to our vacation. Like, we don't let that stop us from starting our vacation. Next thing that I consider and that I was thinking about whenever we were planning our trip in May is last year for 2021, because we did 2 trips, I bought an annual pass. Now, I knew that we were going to do most likely 2 trips, so I had purchased the annual pass, oh my gosh, 2020? Like right before all the parks and stuff closed. When you buy an annual pass, you basically, it doesn't activate and start until you use it for the first time. That's your start date. So I had my annual pass. It hadn't been activated. I held on to it during, everything with the pandemic and the parks being closed. And then when the parks opened back up and we went in April of 21, I activated it, and that was my first time. Now, as of recording this video, as of like March 2022, annual passes have been paused for sale. They are coming back eventually, so this will be helpful for when they do come back. But in the meantime, they are open for renewal. I renewed mine. And when we were factoring, when we were going in May, that was a huge factor for us to consider, was my annual pass. So with the annual pass, number one, it is my ticket. Because we live in Texas, there was only one option for us to buy. It was the highest tier annual pass. And because we lived in Pennsylvania too, when I bought it, there was only one tier level of annual pass for us to be able to buy. So it is the highest one. Before they revamped the annual passes, it came with the memory maker. And when I renewed it for this year, I added the memory maker into it because it didn't change the price at all for me. And one of the things that's huge for us to consider is it's my park ticket. We get the memory maker with all the photos. We get table service dining discounts, free parking. We get merch discounts. And then I think on like tours and dessert parties, we also get 10% off of discounts, specific tours, not like a VIP tour. But that was a huge thing for us to consider when we were going, because it makes a lot of things that much more easy. It makes things that much more enjoyable. We don't worry as much about things, especially because then, like, if we're on a ride or if we're walking down Main Street at Magic Kingdom, we get the photographer take our photo and we have the photo. That was huge for us. The other thing is for Greg's ticket, because he doesn't have an annual pass, we just buy his ticket as we go. I always buy his ticket from Undercover Tourist. They are I think the only authorized wholesaler for Disney, but you can save like $40, $50 off of a ticket than you would paying Disney retail, like Disney website prices. So that's how we always buy his ticket, and then we just use mine for the annual pass. One of the other perks of the annual pass was, so when we went in April of last year, we actually got a discount on our hotel room. So we, instead of staying at like Pop, we stayed at Caribbean Beach, because with the discount, the cost of Caribbean Beach was the same as Pop Century. The other cool thing about it is we were able to give that room discount to my friends. So Greg's best friend and one of my best friends went with us to help celebrate Greg's birthday, and we were able to give them the room discount also, so they got that perk. Next thing that we factor whenever we're planning a trip and we consider, okay, what parks do we want to go to? What do we want to do? And where do we want to spend our time? So when we go in May, we're not doing Animal Kingdom. For us, Animal Kingdom isn't really a must-do park. We love Flight of Passage. We love, Kilimanjaro safaris. But for us, that's not always a must-do. If we're there for a longer trip, yes, it's a must-do. Shorter trips, not really. So our priorities in May were Magic Kingdom for the 50th, Epcot for Flower and Garden, and then Hollywood Studios, because we're both just giant Star Wars nerds. So those 3 parks. But when you think about it, we're there for 5 days. So what are we going to do with all of that time? One thing that we have learned and we love doing is the day that we get there. So we're there from like Wednesday to Sunday, and day that we get there, we always love doing Disney Springs. Now, I've heard a lot of people are like, Disney Springs, it's fine, but it's shopping and it's all those things. But it's still part of it gets you into the Disney mood. It's so much fun. I love going to the World of Disney store. I love going to, the co-op and just all of the Christmas stores and the Star Wars store. And it gets you into that Disney vibe. And there's merchandise at Disney Springs that they don't have in the park. So a lot of times that's where you can get like customized ornaments. I always get one every time we go because we're celebrating something. The co-op is where you can get like the customized magic bands. I've got customized phone cases before. So I always tell people when they're planning a trip, plan to spend a day at Disney Springs. There's a lot to see, a lot to do. There's so much fun, and it really gets you into the Disney mood. The other thing that we factor, and this is part of what we factored into with our trip, is because we're staying at Riviera and we're on the Skyliner, we're planning to do 2 half days at Epcot. So basically we wanted to spend time at the resort. The resorts are amazing. If you've ever spent a day at a resort or you've gone resort hopping or something, there's so much to see and do. Especially like Riviera, they have the mosaics, they've got the pools. It's just such a relaxing vibe that we knew we wanted to spend time at the pool. So we're planning to do like a morning in Epcot and then come back and do the pool for the afternoon, go back out for the evening. And then the day we leave, we're doing a half day at Epcot also, just to make sure we can touch everything that we missed. So don't forget, when you're planning a Disney trip, check out the resorts, check out Disney Springs. It's not just all about the parks. All right, and then the final thing that I always factor and I plan whenever I plan my Disney trips is luggage. Now, we're going for 5 days. Do I need to check a bag? No, not really. We're flying with United, so we'd have to pay to check bags if we wanted to. But one big trick and tip and secret, and I think it's a thing that not a lot of people sometimes take advantage of, is Disney will ship your merch home for you. Now, one of the big things that we loved about this was when we were there last August, we built lightsabers. We both did the custom lightsabers, and with shipping them home with Disney, if anything happened to them in transit, Disney would replace it for you. for Greg and I, that was a huge factor, was the fact that they would take care of it for us if something happened. Versus if I try to take that lightsaber on a plane and it breaks, well, I'm out of luck because then I've got to figure out how to replace it. So basically anything that is Disney label, anything you buy in the parks, there are a few exceptions. So like Japan and China in Epcot, you can't, because the countries themselves run those pavilions, so they're not Disney owned. And then stores at Disney Springs like Under Armour, Uniqlo, Lego, stores again that aren't Disney owned and run, they can't ship home for you. But like World of Disney, the Co-op, World of Christmas store at Disney, Art of Disney, and then basically anything else in the parks, things you buy at the resorts, merch like that, you can ship home. I have shipped pins, I have shipped shirts, mugs, lightsabers. I have had one thing show up broken and Disney replaced it for me. It was fairly easy. I called the number, I gave them my order number, sent them photos of what happened. Next thing I know, another replacement was showing up and it wasn't an issue. So if you're going for a shorter trip, or if you want to pack light, don't worry necessarily about all the stuff that I'm going to buy. Will it fit? Most of the stuff you can actually then ship home. Easy peasy, right? So that is everything I factored and considered when I planned my trip in May. So we're going for 5 days because we wanted to do a nice long weekend. We rented DVC points and we're staying 1 night at the Contemporary and then the rest of it at Riviera. We have a resort day planned. We've got Disney Springs day planned. We've got our parks planned. We're using my annual pass for all of the discounts and all of the photos. And we are basically on this trip though, we're winging it. Normally I plan a lot more, but because we were just there in August, we were also there for a longer trip in April. I think last April we were there for like 10 days. So this trip we're really planning on eating around the world. This is a trip where we're just enjoying ourselves. So this is how I planned my May trip. These are all of the tricks, tips, hacks, whatever you want to call them, that I plan whenever I'm planning a Disney trip. Don't forget to check out Instagram because that's where a lot of Disney stuff is going down. You can see highlights from all of my past trips over there. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye, everybody.